Okay, wow. So you guys sent in some research on ketones, and I got to say, this stuff is pretty wild. It's
Yeah.
like scientists just gave us this whole new way to think about brain health, especially when it comes to Alzheimer's.
Yeah, it's definitely some pretty big research for sure.
So in this deep dive, we're going to like really break it all down. We'll get into the science, but we'll keep it fun too. We'll walk through how this changes what we know about ketones and, you know, why you should care, even if you're not like all in on the whole keto thing yet.
Yeah, sounds good. A good place to start might be with kind of the background of all this neurodegenerative diseases stuff. You've probably heard of Alzheimer's, right? Which is like one of many diseases linked to aging, and also this thing called protein misfolding.
Okay, protein misfolding. That sounds kind of scary.
Yeah, well, so think of proteins like these tiny little machines in your body, and their shape, like, determines their job. So when they misfold, it's like you're jamming a wrench in the gears. They just can't function right.
Mhm.
And in Alzheimer's, we see this with like amyloid plaques and tau tangles, which are basically just clumps of these misfolded proteins, just like wreaking havoc in the brain.
So where do ketones fit into all of this? I know they're talked about a lot with like ketogenic diets, but are you saying there's more to it?
Yeah, definitely. There's been research looking at ketogenic diets and Alzheimer's, and some studies with mice actually show pretty promising stuff. It seems like these diets could help improve cognitive function and even reduce some of those harmful amyloid plaques we talked about.
Okay, so that's already super interesting, but this new research goes even deeper.
Absolutely. This research isn't just about ketones as like an alternative fuel for your brain, which is what most people think of first. It found a totally different way they work away that ketones actually target those misfolded proteins directly.
Wait, hold on. So ketones are actually doing something to like fix the problem, not just going around it. Tell me more.
Well, one of the researchers actually said it perfectly. They called ketones janitors of damaged protein. The like little cleanup crews that clear out the molecular waste so your brain can work at its best.
Okay, that analogy makes a lot of sense. So how
Yeah.
do they do that? How do they actually clean up this mess?
To understand that, we got to talk about how proteins can be in two states, soluble and insoluble. You know, like salt. You can have salt dissolved in water that's soluble, or you can have those like salt crystals that's insoluble.
Okay, yeah, I get that. So how does that connect to the ketones?
So what this research found is that ketones actually help move misfolded proteins from that soluble state to the insoluble state. It's like they round them up and get them ready to be thrown away.
So they're like gathering up all the stray misfolded proteins and getting them ready.
Exactly. But it gets even cooler. They don't just gather the trash, they also help get it out of the brain.
What? Seriously? So they take the trash out too. This is blowing my mind. How do they even know which proteins to target? Like, how does that work?
That is the really fascinating part. It turns out that when proteins misfold, they actually change their shape in a way that creates these specific binding sites. And the ketones can recognize those sites, like a lock and key. And they essentially tag those misfolded proteins for removal.
Wow, so it's not just random. They actually have a system for finding the damaged ones.
Right. And the fact that this all happens during ketosis, which is often linked to fasting, is super interesting from like an evolutionary perspective. Think of it like your body's way of doing a deep clean during times when resources are scarce.
It's like spring cleaning for your brain. That makes me wonder, what else could this research tell us about how our metabolism and overall health are connected?
That is a great question. And that's actually what we're going to get into next.
Yeah, this research is really exciting, I think, because it kind of means we need to like expand how we think about ketones.
Mm.
We've always thought of them as just an alternative fuel source,
Yeah.
especially for the brain. But this shows they're a lot more active in keeping our cells healthy and maintained.
So are you saying that what we eat and the metabolic state it puts us in could actually affect how well our bodies clean up those harmful protein clumps?
That's exactly what this research suggests. And it's not just ketones either. There's a chance that other molecules like lactate, which our bodies make during exercise, could be doing something similar.
Hold on. So you're saying that working out could actually be helping my brain clear out some of that molecular garbage?
It's a real possibility. This research opens up a whole new way to think about the link between our metabolic state, whether that's from diet or exercise, and our overall health. It seems like we might have more control over these cellular processes than we thought. Okay, so now I'm really curious to know, like, what the researchers who discovered all this are thinking about next. Where do they go from here?
Well, I mean, they're definitely super excited about what this research could mean for us. They think it could be huge in how we treat neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and even how we think about aging.
Did they mention any specific areas of future research that they're really interested in?
Yeah, one thing they really want to explore further is the exact way that ketones interact with these misfolded proteins. There are still some mysteries to solve, like, for example, they want to understand the role of chaperone proteins.
Chaperone proteins, what are those?
So think of chaperone proteins like guides for other proteins. They help proteins fold into the right shapes, and they help stop them from misfolding in the first place. The researchers want to know how chaperone proteins might be interacting with ketones in this cleanup process.
Wow, so there's this whole complex system happening in our cells to make sure things run smoothly.
Exactly. And another area they're looking at is which specific types of cells and areas of the brain are most affected by this ketone cleanup. Figuring that out could be really important for developing targeted therapies.
So it's like this research has opened up this whole new world of possibilities for understanding and treating these diseases.
And there's even more. Remember how we talked about lactate? They also want to know if other molecules might have similar effects on protein cleanup. Imagine having a bunch of different molecular tools that we could use to target these processes and improve cell health.
Yeah, the possibilities are pretty mind-blowing. It seems like we're really close to some major breakthroughs in how we think about health and aging.
It's definitely a really exciting time in this field for sure, but it's important to remember that we're still just at the beginning. There's still so much we don't know and lots of unanswered questions.
So I'm putting all of this together. It sounds like we're moving past the idea that ketones are just fuel and starting to see them as these active players in keeping our brains healthy.
That's a great way to put it. We're beginning to understand that they play a crucial role in keeping our cells clean and working well. It's like having a team of tiny little janitors constantly patrolling our brains, making sure everything is in order.
Yeah, it really makes you think. Like, have we been totally underestimating how important these metabolic processes are? We always thought of them as just for weight loss or energy, but maybe they're doing a lot more than we realized.
Yeah, I think you're right. This research could really change how we see things like fasting and exercise. Not just as ways to, look better, but as ways to actually protect our brains and maybe even prevent age-related decline.
It's definitely making me rethink my own habits. So for our listeners who've been with us on this deep dive, what's like the big takeaway here? What should they be thinking about even after we're done?
Well, I think the most important thing is that we probably have more control over our brain health than we thought. This research shows that even simple lifestyle choices like doing intermittent fasting or exercising regularly could have a huge impact on how our brains age.
It almost feels like we're getting a sneak peek into the future of healthcare, where we're not just waiting for something to go wrong, but actually taking steps to keep ourselves healthy.
Exactly. And while we definitely need more research, this is a really promising start to understanding how to age better and keep our brains working well for longer.
This has been so fascinating. I mean, it really shows how much we still have to learn about how our bodies work.
Yeah, it's been great diving into this with you. It's always exciting to see research that changes how we think and opens up new paths to explore.
And to everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has inspired you to take charge of your own brain health. Maybe it's time to try intermittent fasting or add another workout to your week. Whatever you do, we encourage you to keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep exploring the amazing world of science. Until next time, stay curious.